So hello, a bit formal. So I've just done a talk. I've just done two talks by half 10, by 11 o'clock this morning, and that's what I want to talk about. So I went into it's a big deal. So I went into a company that I've been working with a little bit, and I did two separate talks, half-hour long talks. Stuff I've sort of done before, but adapted and changed. They wanted two different ones. And it was interesting. There's a bit of a watershed moment today where, and I've had it with performing, where I've kind of got to a point of comfort. And that is the comfort of not being perfect and being flawed. And don't get me wrong, this is going to sound awful because it's like I'm going to turn up and just go, yeah, it's all right. But when I do a job, of course I want it to be amazing. But the paradox is that when I do something and sit with the fact it's not going to be absolutely perfect, it's a lot better than it would be had I been there trying to sort of painstakingly check every word I was going to say at every moment. And something happened which was very important, which was really nice. So I had two talks to do. One was called How to Get Good at Stuff, which ties in with my website and my whole sort of value system and ethos and all that about sort of self-improvement and improving at stuff. And the other one was about focus, about how to, the fact that we need to get into creative space, we have to focus on what that means and what that doesn't mean and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I was just about to start my first talk and I realised I'd give myself up to do the wrong one. So I had them the wrong way around. So there's a split second, we've got people in the room, very close quarters, very informal situation. So we've got only sort of 8 people in a very small room listening to me do a half-hour talk. And I realised I was just about to start the wrong talk. So I would say probably 2 years ago, that had been blind panic because my head has got the slides in order and what I'm going to do and what I'm going to talk about. And I very quickly just had to go, oh, and I made a joke out of it and go, it's that one, isn't it? And they said, no, the other one's later on. So very quickly I went from doing one talk in my head to another talk in my head, and there was like a couple of minutes of sort of icky kind of, I had the other slides in my head, so the slide that was coming up sort of threw me because it wasn't the one that I thought, all that stuff. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, yes, it made it less polished, but polished isn't really my thing. I do tend to speak in a very fluid way and stay with the room a little bit, so if people ask me a question I can go off on a little tangent, as long as I sort of start and finish where I wanted to. That's kind of all that matters. So I'm not like an ultra rehearsed person, and it gave it almost like a human vulnerable thing. So it was just like, oh my god, I've got to think about this, and I was sharing that with people, and I think it really gave it let in a bit of my humanity and not being Mr. Speaker, but at the same time showing how comfortable I was in this scenario and in the environment. But the important thing was that I actually felt comfortable. I felt comfortable with that slight mess up, and I felt comfortable with the fact that it meant it wasn't absolutely perfect. And I think that's the key. And I've just been talking to a friend of mine about perfection and really about the sort of dangers of being a perfectionist. And I think at heart I am one. But I've learned over the years that if you ever want to do certain things, like create certain things that are going to go out in public, like me doing this now, that it is not going to be perfect. It can't be, okay? Because I do this every day, therefore it has to be flawed. And I suppose the reason I started doing this is because I want to be able to sit with imperfection better. I want to be able to sit with it better and put something out there that I know could be better if I spend 3 days on it. But you know what? Isn't, because this is where I am now. And I think really that's the key to creating anything. It's understanding that there is a process to get into the place you want to get. So the place I want to get really is what I felt like today. I felt comfortable. I felt that I was thinking straight. I wasn't panicking. When things went wrong, I just sort of sat with it and it sorted itself out. And then it was a minor thing. It was being filmed as well by me and by someone else professionally. So that really didn't come into it. And usually, again, I'd be at that place going, oh, God, they're going to see this. I did a magic trick and it was a little bit icky. There was a moment, but nobody noticed it. All that stuff. I think I've got to a place of going, you know what, that is the process. And I think the key to creativity, and I'm not the one person to say this, or the key is to feeling comfortable in any role that might be uncomfortable for a while, whether it's performance speaking or a new job that you're starting, is to understand that the process is flawed. The process requires you to drop the ball a couple of times, then pick it up and go, okay, what did I do wrong there? And just sit with being good enough as you, being yourself. And I felt that today there was a comfort in my work and a comfort that I've been looking for, and I got it with performing. It took me a long time. I was like, ultra thinking everything, and then I just felt comfortable with what I was doing. And I think today, don't get me wrong, I've come off stage a lot and felt good about it, but just feeling comfortable and just thinking, yeah, I know. And all that imposter syndrome is still there, obviously. You know, that syndrome of, someone's going to tap me on the shoulder one day and go, hang on, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. And I think a lot of us have that. And one way of dealing with that, I think it's always there. So whenever I go into an organisation and I do a talk or a facilitating meeting, there's always the imposter syndrome, and I haven't met anybody that doesn't have it, of kind of, do you really know what you're talking about? And the way I deal with that is really, it's a voice, it's that resistance voice. And I always think of the sort of 1980s sitcoms where like the guy would walk in and he had the nagging wife, the real stereotype, and you kind of hear it, but you don't really register. It's just always there, and that's what I feel like. It's like a nagging voice that I can sort of hear but not really register with. It's sort of, and I kind of love it in a way as well, because it makes me keep on my toes. It makes me think, but it's not going to bring me down. And I think that's kind of what it sounds very sexist, doesn't it? It's like a nagging wife. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is those sitcoms were sexist, but it's the nagging voice that I can hear. It's like this constant, and I sort of just ignore it and deal with it, and I know it's there, and it's fine because we all have it. So the message really from today's learning is talking to my friend, and also is that she's writing stuff at the moment, and there's always you write something and you kind of go, yeah, it's great, and then after about a few hours looking at it, and then you start sort of pulling it apart. And that's what we all do, all right? So if you are creating anything, writing something, I think the key is to just write it, get it out, and just go, okay, I'm going to give this to you now, but your job, okay, your responsibility is to tell me if there's anything you want to change. Please be honest about it. Okay, I wrote an article recently, and I haven't written many articles. I've written a lot of blogs, and it was one of those moments when I sent it, and I was like, I kind of reread a little bit, and I was like, I'm not happy with that. Got an email back saying it's absolutely perfect, thanks very much. So I think it's understanding you've just got to create it, get to that point where you think, yeah, I'm happy with that, and just send it before you can start ripping it apart, whatever it is. And that's not just with writing, that's with creating anything. If you're coming up with ideas, it's okay to come up with bad ideas to get to the good ideas. You've got to drop the juggling balls to learn to juggle. Can you imagine if someone said you've got to learn to juggle but you're not allowed to drop? You literally wouldn't. Okay, it's a cliche, it's a step, but it's really important. So that's my learning for today. Yeah, the dangers of perfection. If you're a perfectionist, be one. But you know what? After a while, if you're too much of one, you're never gonna put anything out. Have a good day.